because we are missing some people, so just so you can say if you're here.
Bob Wilkinson.
John Lippman here.
Stephanie Gaskell here.
Joan Francolini.
Charles Sellis.
Michael Herman.
Okay. On the agenda, first up is our finance team. Come on up, introduce yourselves, and you could sit there, and we're very happy to have you.
Happy to be here. I'm Cedric Souza, Town Accountant and Assistant Finance Director.
Lucas Ratliff, Assistant Town Accountant.
So I passed out two documents right before, one of them being a Munis year-to-date and another one an Excel file. Whatever one you guys want to go over first, I'm happy to start.
Let's go over this
The Excel.
Excel file. That's okay, going over that first? Yep, great.
So, between myself, Joan, and Jennifer, we've been working with coming up with balances for the CPC. So, two of the reports that CPC requires at the end of the fiscal year is something called the CP1 and CP2. This Excel is modeled after the CP2, which essentially records revenues and expenditures and fund balance at the end of fiscal year. So I figured it'd be nice to kind of have something running in real time. So the Excel you have in front of you is ran up until period ending April 30th. The top part is just revenues collected for the current fiscal year. As you can see, it's FY 26, 25, 24, and 23 through, 2003 through 23 surcharge receivables. The other categories are revenues, with the next biggest one being the state trust fund distribution. From there, you have a total of $1.4 million collected in FY 26. From there, it goes down to expenditures, which I have broken up by each of the buckets: open space and rec, historical, community housing, debt, and then the administrative. If you go down to the next section, that's kind of where your fund balance is built. Again, these numbers are subject to change because this is only ran through April 30th. Starting at the top, which was your fund balance as of 7/1/25 that was certified by the state or DLS. We have the year-to-date of $1.4 million of revenues. The next one is the project recapture / closeouts. What that is I believe the last few meetings you guys have actually closed out excess funds from projects. And as you can see, it's a positive effect to your fund balance. So to date, you've closed out $46,000 worth of projects. And then from there, it's less your expenditures and less encumbrances. DLS looks at encumbrances as expenditures. The state of Massachusetts is very conservative when it comes to finances, so they record encumbrances as if you spent it. Again, as of 4/30, your fund balance would be $1.13 million, which is roughly a 6% growth from what was certified last year. Again, subject to change with another month in the fiscal year. But if there's any questions or anything, or if I went over that too fast, I'm happy to answer any questions on that.
I do have one question. Assuming we have, just for argument's sake, 0 at the end of this year, we won't, but let's just say we do, then we could anticipate next year, if it's similar to this past year, having about 1.4 million in money, right?
In surcharge revenues?
Yeah, that's what we would have available next year if that took place.
Theoretically, yes, yeah, because you charge the 3% of the surcharge of property tax.
Yeah, if everything was the same next year
Yep.
as it was this year,
Yeah.
we get 1.4. If we ended up with 0, which we'll end up with something more than that, but that's a different conversation, we'll have about 1.4 million or so
In revenues?
in money to spend.
So, yes, yeah, which is what bases your appropriation for the fiscal year.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
Any question? John?
I don't think so, just, let me look at it.
Of course,
Something
yeah.
pops in my head.
Yeah.
So this doesn't account, Mayor?
Good.
This doesn't account for the expenditures in FY '27 that we're committed to
No.
now?
Because that still needs to be voted on at town meeting. So this is only, let me see how I can explain this, 26 activity. So there's actually projects that's been carrying on. This is only what's been spent in FY '26.
Oh, so it doesn't include open balances of projects?
No, it does.
It does.
It does, yeah.
Okay, so, but we have at town meeting, say, $1 million right now. It's going to be voted on Monday night.
Yeah.
Once that's voted on, does that slide in here as encumbered?
No.
No.
This is strictly up to FY 26.
Okay,
Yep.
so that'll
Sort
start,
of my question.
Yeah, FY '27 starts a brand-new set of books.
and the revenue also starts for that,
Yes.
too.
Correct, yep.
Okay. I think I got it. This is great, thank you.
Of course.
No, I had the same kind of question. I was looking at that 6/30/25, and it was confusing. You've explained it. Thank you.
Of course.
Charles?
No.
No? So how often do you think we should get these?
I would say probably on a quarterly basis. I think you guys do receive the month-to-dates in Munis, which I was also going to propose a solution to that. And part of the reason why we gave you guys a Munis year-to-date, Munis is, I like Munis, but it's difficult to read, especially if you're not in it every day. So after town meeting, saying everything gets voted on, we were going to propose putting together an Excel that's a little bit more streamlined so you can actually see each project in the specific buckets, so it's a little bit easier to read. But with that being said, I did print out Munis, so I can go over that with you guys if you want to continue seeing the Munis printout.
Yes.
I think an Excel would be great.
Yeah.
We could still do Munis, but an Excel
Yeah.
that is clear like this is
Right.
Yeah.
going to help
course.
us all.
Yeah.
And that's, especially some of us more than others who every year get confused of what this means. So you would give us those Excels monthly then going forward?
We could update monthly.
You're suggesting quarterly.
I'm saying quarterly, but if you guys prefer monthly,
Quarterly for this.
Yeah.
Monthly for
for the,
Yeah, monthly
Month
for
to
the
dates.
Munis.
Yeah.
Quarterly for this?
certainly, yeah.
That would be great.
Question, one more. In the first section,
Yep.
it says, where all these, it says surcharge receipts for all those years. What exactly is that? Is that what's left over that?
So that's what we're actually collecting.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
I see.
Yeah.
How, you were collecting like receipts from 2023 and 2024?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, anything outstanding we still collect on.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
of course.
Anyone else? Yes?
On the Munis,
Yep.
what I'm seeing is just.
On this, but you're up to this?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Good.
These are the open projects that we have a balance on?
Yes.
There's no other open projects?
No, so there is, so I printed out just 26 just to have like a simple looking Munis one that I was gonna walk through, but there are, I don't wanna say a lot, because you guys have done a good job of closing anything out that hasn't had activity, but there's few, so to your question, these are open, as you can see by the available budget column, so those are actually open projects.
Yeah, I would just suggest that it would be helpful monthly if you did all open projects,
Yeah, yep,
any year.
of course,
This way, we won't let something fall through the cracks or
Yep.
don't know about it.
absolutely.
It's a good push for and reminder to us to
Stay on
check
top.
on that project and
Okay. Want to take us through this one?
Sure. Yeah. So again, this is only FY '26 projects because, as we mentioned, there's projects from, you can go back, I don't know your oldest project, but 2024, 2025, and as long as they're not closed out, they continue to roll. So again, to make this simple, this is only FY '26. So if we start at the third column from the left, revised budget, that is the appropriation, that is what is voted on at town meeting, unless there's any other appropriation changes. The next column, year-to-date expended, is your actuals. Depending on when the project is ran, that'll be to date. Encumbrances are your purchase orders, so that's money that is on a purchase order set aside. If you go over to the available budget column, that's what is left over, and then the percent used is what has been used. I do want to point out, if you go to the second project, that shows an encumbrance of 24.9 and available budget of 100. As you can see, the revised budget is 25,000. We have encumbered of 24.9 and available 100. Even though we haven't spent that money, it's set aside, and Munis will look at it as if it's been spent. Because it's
Not
in,
for the project above it?
nope, there's no PO. So there hasn't been a single invoice or anything charged to that
Oh, so
project.
that means there's invoices for the Form B.
There's been a PO that's setting aside that money, and eventually there will be invoices, but as of right now, there's been no invoices paid. Because if you go to the column to the left, the year-to-date, there's a 0, so nothing's actually been paid. But there's a purchase order setting that money aside.
And will that reflect, I guess to me, when we look at the available, it says 312. That's not.
Oh,
really-
bottom. Sorry.
That's not really available, because we're assuming it's committed or encumbered, set aside for these projects.
Correct, yeah, just nothing's been spent on that appropriation, but I understand what you're saying, yes.
When we look at the Excel, are we seeing 300, included in the available funds, is that 312,000?
No, you would be seeing the 211, what's actually been spent.
Gotcha.
Yep,
Okay, thank you.
of course.
I have two questions.
Yep,
So on the name of the projects,
yeah.
so this says public education. If we want to put a better definition behind that, like, conservation or historic public education, that's up to us, correct?
On the Munis side,
Yeah, or do you put that in?
so I would create that, and I can definitely make that more,
Descriptive?
yeah, I definitely can. The only thing is when you print it out, it does make it a little bit shorter. That's why I think converting this to the Excel
Would be good.
would be easier, yeah.
And then on Simpson Island, I know I signed an invoice last week. How long does it take for an invoice to work its way through the system?
I can speak to that. And this is how it's set up to work. There's always potential for, illness, whatever, it doesn't work out. But if I receive it by Friday at noon, it will be included in the following Wednesday. That means the checks get printed either Wednesday afternoon, Thursday morning, just depends on how quickly it moves through the treasurer's office.
Because I think last year, Jennifer and I, there was a miss on 2 invoices that we thought was submitted, but they weren't accounted for. So do you think we should just give it a week to be safe? Like if we,
And yes, and you can always feel free to follow up with me and just say, we submitted an invoice last week. Is it going out? And I can let you know, like, oh, I put it in the box, there was an issue, or, I was out for the last 3 days and I haven't got to it, and it will have to go out on next week. I don't mind updating you whenever you have questions.
Our written material to our grant recipients says always allow at least 2 weeks.
right. But for us, it was the end of the year report that we missed. There was an invoice we thought was already paid, and it wasn't paid, so it wasn't accounted for. Okay. Anyone else?
Makes good sense.
No? Great.
I think everybody knows this, but it took me a while to catch up on the numbers there. It's the 2.6, AA, 2.6B is always the year. So it's just an easy reference. I didn't know that.
Oh, gotcha.
Long time.
Also, what you often see when all the years are on here is that revised budget is only the amount encumbered. It's not the original grant amount, it's only the amount at the start of the fiscal year. So, an older project might have got 15,000, but only $8,050 is left or something.
Right.
That shows in that column. But the percent is still 100% of that encumbered amount.
Great. Anything else?
I'm good.
Good? Good. Okay, Francesca's on.
Ah, great.
Why, thank you so much. It's been great having you both and helping us through this all, which has not been easy, and thank you for all your great work.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
Francesca, can you hear us?
I can, thank you. My apologies. I had a meeting that ran late.
No, you're working. We were just saying, we would never be on this committee if we were working full-time. Way too much. Okay, Historic Commission update, Charles?
No.
I think Ed's going to talk about that.
Oh, good. Hi, I didn't know who Ed was.
Hello, I'm Ed Marcarelli, Chair of the Historical Commission.
Ed?
And Thaddeus Herrick is here with me, who's taking the lead on the public education, public awareness project that we were here to talk about. So,
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
It's Thaddeus.
Thaddeus.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to do was to talk about the public education project because there was some, I guess, confusion or some question about what we were doing with those funds. And I'm also happy to answer about any of the other projects that CPC has funded. And, we want to say we appreciate the support that we get and the funding that we get for the projects that we're doing. You might remember that we're doing Form Bs for all the older properties in Orleans. We're also doing an archaeology project this fiscal year, and we have this public awareness project. So, it's an important part of the commission's work to do public awareness, and we really have neglected it over the last few years. Charles knows this well. We spent a lot of our effort and time on a study committee to do, it was all the same members on the study committees that are on the commission, and we were trying to establish a local historic district on Main Street. We put a lot of effort into that to the neglect of some other things, and one of those things, I think, has been public awareness. So we're trying to correct for that. One of the things that's contributed to our inability, I think, to get support for the local historic district is that we haven't done enough of this public awareness, and it's important. I wanted to read one line from our CPC application that was, "The knowledge and understanding on the part of our citizens is essential if we are to preserve the unique character of Orleans." And I really think that's true. And so what we're trying to do is to use the public awareness money as effectively as we can. And that's where that RFP came from. And I think there was some concern about, we were hiring a consultant to do some work. And I'm not sure that was even the right word. I think I would probably prefer to use contractor, for all of our projects. For the Form B project, we have Eric Dre, who's a historic preservationist who actually does the Form Bs. For the archaeology project, we've hired Pal, and Holly Herbster is the archaeologist that they've put on that. And so these are the people that actually do the work, because like you, we're just a bunch of volunteers, and we don't really have the time or the effort or the ability that, even the knowledge in a lot of cases to go out and execute on some of these things. And so in our application, and in the grant wording is slightly different, but in our application, we talked about the placement of historical markers. The grant said signage, similar things. We talked about public presentations. That wasn't explicitly mentioned in the grant, but it was in our application. And we talked about the development of printed materials. So those are the three things that that make up the public awareness project. But implicitly in there, you've got to have a plan. You don't just randomly throw signs around or put out printed materials. Somebody's got to say, here's what's an effective way to decide which signs to put and what printed material to have and what to do with it. And so that's what our RFP is looking for. I think we could effectively use, frankly, more than the $15,000 grant that we got. We asked for 25, as I'm sure you know. And I think there's a lot that we can do. In fact, when we've come before this committee before to talk about one of the archaeology projects, somebody pointed out that what we were asking for or setting aside in that project for public awareness was nowhere near as much as it needed to be. So those are the things that we're doing. I think, as I said, we're very appreciative of the priority that you give to historic preservation and to our projects in particular. And we want to make effective use of those funds. And I'm happy to answer any questions about that. I hope you agree that what we're proposing to do through that RFP makes sense and it's a good use. I'm sorry, Joan, let me say one more thing that I forgot to mention. We have this, I know there was also some talk about an intern, and we wanted to use some of this money to do for an intern, and we decided that it wasn't physically or feasible to do through the towns. We'd have to hire like a permanent employee. It just the effort didn't make sense. So what we did instead was to roll the money that we were going to use for that back into the RFP and ask whoever we contract to provide a resource available to do the short-term things that we were going to use the intern to do. So that's the sum of it, and I'm happy to answer any questions
I
about
don't
it.
think everyone knows the background. There was some back and forth because they're gonna hire a consultant, which I thought was fine because they couldn't just do the work themselves. And so they just wanted to come in to explain. It's not just the work, it's the cost of also hiring the consultant, which 15 grand could go very fast with a consultant. But, and I thought it was fine, but I just wanted to give them the chance to come in to explain it. Because that wasn't in the exact write-up. But I do agree, you probably could use more than 15 grand. And
Yeah, yeah.
hopefully you'll come back.
Right.
And the goal is to get a plan
Right.
and come back probably for substantially more money with a developed plan. And the hope is the consultant's going to help give the direction and the skill sets that that the committee doesn't have to develop the plan across a number of different aspects. I don't know if 15,000's gonna be enough money to get it. I doubt it, but that's what we have.
Right. It's what we have, and as I said, we want to make the most effective use of it that we can, which is why I thought it was important for the committee to understand what we were trying to do and for us to get any kind of feedback you have about, how we might do something that was more effective. But, we've thought about maybe who we might push that RFP out to ask to respond to it. And, hopefully, we'll get someone who is able to, what's the right word I want to use, be efficient in the use of that money. I mean, as we're all saying, it's not that much, but it should be enough for us to get something started, and let's face it, it's a lot more than we've been doing in the last couple of years. So I'm hopeful that it's the beginning of something. The other thing I'd like the person that we get to do is to identify some possible other sources of revenue. Again, that's not explicitly in the grant, but I think that, it wouldn't be inappropriate to say we need a lot more signs than we're going to be able to do with this amount of money. Who else can help fund that?
One other thing I'd add is that historic assets, homes and buildings are noticeably absent on the town's social media channels. I mean, they pop up every once in a while, but in the town's social media channels and also the cultural district, and I think there's a real opportunity there just to get a little more exposure to the kind of buildings, the sense of place that Orleans has and offers for people to begin to understand sort of the economic and cultural value of what's here, and frankly is under a serious threat from demolition.
As someone who's not really ensconced in historical, but very supportive of historical efforts, what I find confusing on our committee is the difference between Cho and the Historical Commission. And where there are times that the lines are fuzzy to me. And so you are the Historical Commission, and you talked about fundraising, but Cho has the ability as an organization, 5013C, they have the ability to raise funds. But as the Historical Commission, is that more limited in what you can look for funds? Are your funds only funds that can be received from the town?
It's interesting because I was looking recently at the charter that set up or the bill that set up the Historical Commission, and I haven't looked at it carefully enough yet, but I think there's possibility for us to raise funds elsewhere, but we don't. So the only source of revenue we've had in the years that I've been on the commission are the grants we get through CPC. We haven't solicited funds from anywhere else. I'm not sure, whether we could or not, what the town's opinion would be about that. And to answer your question about the distinction, so Cho is much more broader mandate in terms of being a historical society, or at least part of it is a historical society, and they do lots of interesting things that are sometimes related to preservation, but not always. It could be about just enjoying history or having presentations about history. I think Sunday the 17th, they're doing a John Adams thing that sounds really interesting. Whereas the commission has a narrower mandate where our responsibility is the preservation of historic resources in Orleans. And our one regulatory mandate is to control whether significant buildings can be demolished or not.
They're a regulatory committee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So some of these other things that we do, we choose to do because part of our mandate is to, as I was saying earlier, is to proselytize for historic preservation, and that's what we do. But from the town's point of view, they just want to make sure that there's somebody there to meet the regulation that says, we've got to decide on demolition. So there's not as much of a mandate to do some of the other things. But I think we've always felt that was an important part of what the commission needed to do, which is why we've come to CPC in the past for various
Also,
projects.
don't forget, Joe has staffing
Yes,
hired that does nothing but fundraise.
right,
Commission does not.
right.
I think Cho is or could be a natural ally in this, and maybe that hasn't been developed to the degree that it could.
Yeah, you guys are our regulatory board or committee for the town.
Right.
And you have a staff liaison and a select
We
board
do.
liaison?
Yes, we have both. We have Mike Salicho as our staff liaison.
Which is great.
Kevin Galligan is our,
Yeah.
yes. Oh, yeah, Mike's been great.
So-
This is the first year we've had a staff liaison, and it's made a huge difference. I mean, I took over from Ron Peterson, who you probably know. Ron did a tremendous amount of work on his own that was really staff work that should have been done. And Mike, to his credit, has taken on all of that and done a really excellent job, made it possible for me to do this. I don't know that I would have survived just the amount of time it would require to be the chair
That's
of the
why we make sure now that you have that resource or
Yeah, and
working.
Mike's been great.
And to add to that, I mean, there are other ways to raise funds. I mean, you can do articles at town meeting and talk to the
Right.
select board and talk to the liaisons. I mean, the first port of call, I would think, is the CPC, because we have a mandate, a historic mandate. But if there was anything much bigger, most of our other committees that also look to raise money have friends of groups.
Right.
Which is a 501c3 that works in conjunction with, say, the library or something like
Yeah.
that, or what we did with Veterans in Memorial Park, which we're doing right now as a 501c3. That's been amazing in raising funds, and as I mentioned, the Snow Library is like the gold standard of Friends of, and I see Judy's in the audience, and the Friends of the COA is amazing too. So there are other avenues out there to explore. And the only thing I would suggest on the plan, I know it's 15, and I know you wanted more right now, but it's what we were able to fit into this year. But I would suggest that when you work with your consultant or that you phase out a plan, that, it's a multi-year plan possibly, that then we can fund in increments. So it doesn't all have to be at once. Maybe that's an easier way to do it. I don't know, but you could, it's all.
Well, I think that would be really helpful if the committee is okay with us asking our whoever we get to do this to put that multi-year plan together. I think that would be something that would be really helpful.
Yeah.
I just want to say, Michael, on the funding aspects of the commission, I think as a regulatory commission, there should be a line item in the town budget for some of the things that we do. One of the things that we don't do anything about is demolition by neglect.
Yeah.
I think that should be part of the building inspector's budget to report on those. I think there are some other things that are related to that regulatory requirement around demolition that would be helpful to have a budget for. So
I mean,
I've
there is
started to talk to
a
Michael.
budget,
Yeah.
because we do have the demolition delays and all of that, and that doesn't come out of your money, right? It comes out of the town, has that.
Well, we don't have any money.
Right, that's what I mean. So those things cost.
that's right, yeah,
There is a budget already.
The budget is like for, paying for the notice for the hearing. I don't think there's anything substantial in that.
I got you. So I'm just really glad to hear Mike Salicho is working with you.
Yeah, no.
And you got Kevin, so I mean, he's amazing. So, you know, I'm glad to see the attention's being brought to you and that there's can come up with a strategic plan of how best to move forward.
Yeah, I think it's made a big difference. You can tell that because, you know, we have a lingering, the Form B project that we're running right now is two components. It has fiscal year '25 money and fiscal year '26 money. And so now we're organized enough, I think, so that we're gonna, you know, we will complete all of our projects, probably not in fiscal '26, but before the end of calendar '26, we will have expended all of that and be back on track. Because we, you know, one of the reasons that we don't have any funding for the public awareness for FY '27 is that we weren't together enough to spend the '26 money. So we were going to come here and ask you for more money when we hadn't even gotten to start the project yet.
And if I could add one last thing?
Yep.
Since you are a town committee, you should definitely, with Mike, be contacting our PR and communications here, as Thaddeus mentioned, with our social media, because
Yeah.
you're our committee.
She
You-
attended.
Yeah, I mean, he can just talk to Amanda and they can try, I can't promise what they can fit in, and I don't oversee their daily schedule and things like that, but you guys, that information that you are suggesting, if you voted as a committee to more awareness, some of this public awareness, the structure's already set up.
Right, but we need the materials to
They can
provide
help you
them. and-
create the
yeah.
materials, you
Yeah,
know, so.
Yeah, I think it's a capacity issue.
It's worth a meeting. and
Oh, yeah,
it's-
well,
Yeah,
we definitely have to
have-
work through them
Good, okay.
anyway, once we have the.
Oh, great, okay.
We have spoken to Amanda, and I think she's a great resource, and I know she's done some, but I think you're right. There's an opportunity for sort of, you know, a more directed, purposeful meeting, just to, where she can help us now, what we can provide for her to make her life easier and that sort of thing.
The one thing I would say is we just got a really nice proposal back from Simpson Island. They used a really good consulting firm. I think their designs were really well done, really thought out, and maybe Jennifer could connect
to
you.
know that,
If you're still
yeah.
putting agency bids out there, I thought what they gave us as their summary was some of the best work I've seen in terms of a little condensed.
Great.
Yeah.
That's a
obviously,
good
yeah.
tip.
Okay, we good? We don't need to vote, right?
No, I just want to confirm or advise, we're encumbering the funds for all the OHC projects, as Charles mentioned, and we will issue a grant agreement, and the committee will sign that. We are issuing grant agreements to everybody from the CPC, so to continue.
Great, thank you for coming.
Thanks very much.
Okay, I'm
Maybe-
gonna suggest,
Judy?
yes, I was gonna suggest Judy come up, and then Jeff come up, and then we could, and Charles could talk about Cho, but then we could talk about grant terms under number 5. Hi, Judy?
Hi. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to address the group. Thank you, Jennifer, for reaching out. If you don't know me, I'm Judy Wilson. I'm the Director at the Council on Aging. I just give you a little bit of an update as to where we are and what the request is. So last year, the native plantings policy was developed by the town and became clear that our installation would happen after the policy took place. So we sent our design for a redesign, or a third redesign, in order to incorporate all of that into the planting. So we had the plan revised so that we can adhere fully to the policy. We met with the COA board and the master gardeners, who this committee had recommended that we meet with during the design process, who provided design input along the way. We completed the first phase of plant demolition, which was a lot of tree work in order to thin things out and increase the sun. The initial garden was overplanted by everybody's, I think there was general consensus that it had been overplanted. So we had that done. A little bit nervous, to be honest. I thought that was going to be the most controversial part of what we did. It was done so well, I don't think anybody even noticed, which is a blessing from my perspective. The biggest holdup for us has been something personal for me. I had a very unexpected leave of absence from work due to a family emergency. And regrettably, all of our larger scale projects have been delayed, and this regrettably is one of them. I have been in touch with the landscape designer. We have agreed upon a narrative for the scope of service. I'm putting documents together, and we hope to get it to the town's special projects coordinator, Mike Solitro. Because of the projected cost, it's going to have to go out for a full RFP. Our goal would be to try and see if we can get an end of summer, early fall planting, which I think would work well with especially water restrictions, if we can do it when the days are a little bit shorter and not quite as hot. So the request is that we encumber the CPC funds to make this possible. The total funds are $43,150, and they're in two separate accounts. I have the numbers, but I'm guessing you have that. So we are at the point where we are probably maybe a week away from having the documents, and also I don't want to do this during town meeting week, but shortly after town meeting, maybe the week after, I should be able to get all of this over to Mike so that we can start getting ready for formal procurement.
Great. Any questions, Bob?
No, I'm ready when you are.
Bob's your liaison.
I think it's my longest standing project, so I'm more ready, I have to say.
And we thank you for doing native plants, 'cause that's so critical, so I know it took longer, but you'll be happy.
No, I know, it is good. We're actually working on another smaller project. We have this small garden out in front of the senior center that's not been in good shape, and we're gonna turn that into our first, we're doing a small pollinator garden there, so with staff is actually donating time to do that, so, yeah, no, we want to reflect the community. So.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Nope, okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Judy.
Okay, let's do the Northwest Schoolhouse.
Likewise, Judy, we'll send you a new grant agreement.
And maybe, John, you could just tell us what we're supposed to be
Well,
for. Yeah.
Well, we're in the sort of the final stages of what has been a very long project to upgrade the schoolhouse with a full functioning kitchen. And there's been some changes to the inside of the structure as well, new walls. I don't know how long ago that was, but, and we're just sort of spending the last bit of this. We've got a new stove, professional cooking area with a fume hood, friolators, refrigerator, and all that. And the entire kitchen area has been sort of created and rebuilt, including a new entrance that goes by the bathrooms, and it all sort of works. And I was over there today looking at it as well. So if you want to take it away, if I missed anything,
My
please
name
fill
is
that in.
my name is Bill Wardell. I'm here to represent the Northwest Schoolhouse. And yeah, this project has been going on for a while, as everybody knows here at the CPC, and we appreciate you working with us as you have been. The project is really been difficult. It's a very old building, and every time you seem to take up flooring or look for bracing in a wall, nothing exists. I mean, the building was built as a schoolhouse in the 1800s, right? So the town paid for it to be built. I suppose that's how it went anyway. And building codes at the time were what they were, and that wasn't much. So, there was no insulation in the walls when we took them out, which we knew, but, that took a while. We worked very hard to have that done and then paid out of our own pocket some extra money above and beyond to get it done with spray foam so that it really solidifies the whole thing tight, which is so important with a very old building like that. So, the project's been difficult, like I said. Every time we think we're ready to call in a trade, we get kind of held back because there's other things that have to happen. And that, it's time consuming. So where we stood, or where we stand right now, is, as of this past Tuesday, so 2 days ago, we've completed getting the Ansel fire suppression system installed. That was a long hurdle, multiple times that the company was out to, it's a lot of work, there's a lot that goes into that. And the hood system itself, you know, there's equipment that is outside, there's equipment that's inside, there's ducting, there's creative ducting in the way that, because of the old building and the height restrictions and certain things, things had to go a little different than were originally planned by them. So again, that took time for them to redirect it and redesign it and come back and finish it off. So there's a lot that goes in with that. But, you know, we're finally ready to dial this all in, and our sincere goal is to have this done by the end of June. Okay? I was asked to have it done by the end of the year. No, absolutely not even a question, but hopefully, we'd like to have it for the summer. We'd like to have it, you know, open and going so we can have some fundraising going, we can do some events, you know, everything that we need to do with that building. And we're looking forward to getting it done. So, I wish finance was still here, because I haven't, you know, it's so hard to know. I know what we submit for bills, but I never know what is actually paid, you know? So all I do is I ran a grand total of everything that was encumbered or everything that was awarded. I realized, for instance, in 2024, that we actually overspent by $2,150 roughly in that year. And, you know, obviously, I'm just keeping a running total, so then that comes back out of a different position.
Can
And
I ask a question?
Sure.
Are you saying you don't know what's paid because you're having it paid directly to the contractor, correct?
right, because we don't pay directly. You got,
Right,
we
so
submit the
so
payment
I understand
request.
that.
Yeah, but then,
Let's
but then
ask
I get,
Lucas is-
there's,
Let me just ask him if there's something they can do to say, here are the people we've paid for you.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're one of the few that pay direct to the vendors on an ongoing basis. A lot of people,
Munis, we can run a report of everybody's who's paid,
right, so we can send that to you.
so we can send
be
it to you.
wonderful.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, because, you know, the
Yeah, that's
the
what
issue
you-
is,
I understand that.
all I know is what we've
Asked for.
requested.
Right, perfect. So we can get that to you.
Okay.
John, Jennifer can send it to you, or John could give it to you.
Right, I do know that, I think the last bill was at least, well, it was before I left for Nantucket, which was like Tuesday, the 28th.
Yeah, I signed that.
Right, so that was the last bill, so that bill should have been processed and
How long
sent.
ago? 2 weeks?
No, about a week and a half.
The last one I believe we submitted was for like 4,950, 5,900?
So I might not have visibility that recently.
Okay.
So, but we can just have it run, and then you
But
can
I'll
get that, and that's
run a
only
current-
fair, because if.
I literally
people-
signed it
you
on
don't know
that
what
day and
they
then
got
left,
paid.
so.
Yeah.
That's fine, that's
Yeah.
easy, that's an easy solve.
So, I mean, you guys have received from, just now, right, like a 26. He said he gave you 2026, so I say I have, out of the award of 95,000 and change, we've spent, or at least requested to had paid
Yeah.
75 and change, leaving us roughly 19 and change. Is that
Right.
what's on your report?
Our report's a little, it says you have more,
Yeah.
which is
It's
better than saying the opposite.
Yeah,
25,
25, okay.
yeah. Well, there's probably an invoice in the works.
That's probably it.
It's probably the
Well,
one.
like I just said, there was
Might have
one
been
for
the-
like 5 and
Right, that might be it.
That would be it.
5,900, something like that.
Be close enough, yeah.
That would make sense.
Okay.
Great.
So, yeah, we can get that to you, and that will help.
Okay.
Right.
So are there any other questions that I can help answer?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I do want to say, I am, you know, this project has always had its difficulties because of unanticipated things, you know, walls being, you know, oh gee, there's no support in that wall or something of that
Yeah.
nature, or the fact that the fire suppression equipment had to be run through separate pipes, including one extending to a little closet under the stairwell and all that, which I saw today. But it really does look good, and they are, it looks like, I think we're looking for June or July, you know, sometime summer.
I hope for the end of
to,
June.
to actually have this thing up and running. And, you know, I said to Paul today, and we can talk about this some more, that it would be interesting to have some kind of opening event, you know, and get other people in the town involved. There's musicians who can come and so on, but yeah.
I saw something about a town tag sale, yard sale.
Yard sale?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not part of that, but, I mean, it is.
Is
that's-
that-
That's
Different than
something,
That's at their homes.
Right, it's,
They're doing one it's a different date.
Yeah.
it's on the 24th, yeah, it's community yard. sale.
Because it's there, isn't it?
Yes, but we have, the town's doing one that's different from what
So
they're doing.
my question was, is it an opportunity for people to see the new kitchen?
they could, it's gonna be outside on the lawn, the yard sale, but
Yeah.
we could have somebody there to take people through, absolutely. We'll take people through the building anytime somebody wants to see the building. We want people to see the building, and we want people to be,
Excited about it.
you know, excited about it and to also join our organizations, you know, so.
Right.
There's all those things. And just like you guys, you know, we are not paid, we are, you know, volunteers in the programs, and, you know, we all have jobs and lives and families, so, you know, it's a work of passion more than it is, you know, certainly isn't a paid position, so it is, it's been a lot of work, an awful lot. But
Are we good, Bob?
Have you thought, as you start to close the window on this and have it so that it can be used for using, for events, of putting a sign out on Rock Harbor Road that says, rent this space for events or something like that?
I haven't thought of it in that respect, like just to put a sign out, but sure, of course, we would love to, when it's finished.
When it's finished, yeah, because I-
The thing is, the town is already, well, parts of people from the town that work here in the building have put us in touch with people that want to use our commercial kitchen, they want to rent it. You know, there's a lot of people that have food service type things where they need to have a commercial kitchen in order to sell their products at, like, for instance, the Saturday morning, you know, they've got the farmer's market, and
What I'm
that is,
thinking of is kind of the big money makers are obviously weddings and.
sure,
You have a fantastic site
Right.
with events without a yard.
Absolutely.
Now you've got a kitchen.
Mhm.
They could have their caterers come in and do their thing. And I guess I'm just, find a way to get the word out, because I think you're gonna have a very desirable space. It's a lovely setting.
Thank you. Thank you. So I guess the only thing I wanted to know from finance, and of course they're not here, is are my numbers, you know, close to correct? Obviously, we're off a couple $1,000s on what's there,
I
but,
think they're close to correct, and we could give it to Lucas and ask him just to take a look.
Okay.
And John could get back to you.
all right.
Yeah, and again, as I said, the fact that the number that you're currently working with is lower than what it says we have available, I do think it's that bill that maybe hasn't gone through, you know, going from being paid to being on an accounting sheet.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wrap this up quick, because we
Okay.
got like a lot left.
Gotcha.
You have
Okay.
questions?
Just a quick question. Have you been in contact with the Chamber of Commerce?
Oh, yeah.
Good.
We're members of the Chamber.
Oh, good. So that should help a
Yeah.
lot, getting the word out.
Again, that's, yeah, they're gonna be advertising our yard sale so that's one thing they're doing, so, yeah, that's wonderful. All right, well, I thank the committee as always.
Thank
Have a
you.
Great day.
Thanks, Bill.
I'm gonna have Charles go next on, Joe, I just wanna, you wanna do the upfront of why there's a little confusing on the grant?
No, you can go.
When we gave the 245 matching funds to Cho, they didn't get a letter to sign as an agreement. And that was because we weren't giving the money at the time, it was more of a match. But we need them to sign something, because that is the rule, because we have committed the money. And so we went back and forth, and part of it is, I did get direction from Stuart at the CPC, who did say every grant, no matter you're giving them money now or it's money for the future, needs a commitment letter. So then Charles went back to Cho just to get the new dates, so we can write something up and just make it done, and they're very happy to sign something. We just didn't want to hobble them with a date that was older, because we just were checking everything. So
Well, the dates that are on here are basically pushed back a year from
Right.
from where the application was. There are two typos, by the way, on here. I did this quickly. Where it says finalized plans, that's 2027, not 3027. And where it says project completion, it's not summer 2008, it's 2028. So there's two typos. But basically, this is the revised, these are the categories that were in their application originally. If you looked at the old one versus the new one, they basically pushed back about a year from where they were originally. Probably not a surprise, but this is a time frame in which they're on, and I assume this is when the grant gets written up, it'll reflect these timelines.
And so, Charles, you think by fall of 2027, since begin construction, we'll know whether or not they're going to spend the money or not? Because like, at what point will they say we haven't reached our goal?
Well, it's gonna be before fall of '27, because that's beginning construction, so it will be sometime before that time period.
Right.
I mean, this needs to be updated on an ongoing basis to see how they are on the timeline, but by fall of '27, if they have the money, they should have started, and they, I mean,
Okay.
but they'll know before that time period, whether or not they.
Okay. Any questions? All right, so Jennifer can just update the agreement and have them sign it.
I think I've given it to you, haven't I? Charles?
Had different timelines on it. Didn't have these dates.
It just had a conclusion date, the grant agreement.
Yeah, but I don't think it, I'd have to look
All
at, but I don't think it, because
I'll
I didn't
check.
have I didn't have these dates when you sent me that.
Okay.
Are we saying the grant's gonna expire in
Fall.
fiscal year '27? Because they'll be beginning construction in the fall?
Yes.
You're right, okay.
Well, wait, they don't get, I don't think, tell me if I'm wrong, they can't, when you say the grant's gonna expire, they can't put in invoices for that until they spend the money, so I'm not sure.
No, I think we read it up is till they raise the money.
I don't know if we pay
match.
anything until, I don't know the answer to that.
But either way, by 27.
By 27, is it going to
By
start?
2027, we'll deal with it at that time.
I mean, we can revisit it, yeah.
Okay. Next, Francesca, I hope you got an email from me because we're looking at a document that I sent it out late today. I thank you for people who gave me feedback already, which is great. And I did talk to Stuart, we had a really good conversation, and I also talked to Mark Reel this morning about what their feeling is about some of these processes. This was just a straw dog, this is not anything that has to go forward. And since Hardy and Dick are not here, I think we should just have a discussion about it, see if we get some alignment, and then maybe next month I won't be here, but then we could vote on it and get something written for July. A lot of this is happening at other towns also, relooking how they use CPC versus just small projects, but really looking at long-term projects and trying to help offset the cost that might go to the taxpayers for a project and seeing what is really important. So the first thing that came up at our meeting last time is if we let applicants come in out of cycle, it doesn't have to be everyone. And what a lot of towns are doing, which I think also makes sense, is that the eligible projects would only be town projects or town-supported. So only long-term, large-scale projects could come in at the November time period and for funding. And that would be the rec project that we just funded would be a good example of that. They had a good rationale why, and only it came through a little differently. So I would say the process wasn't perfect. The other thing is also open space purchases, because when an open space becomes available, we could lose it if we don't have the funding. And in terms of open space, it could be that the town is buying it or OCT is buying it, but it's supported by the town, and they need some extra money to close the gap. So those would be the two type of projects that Stuart was saying that other towns are using as what could be funded off-season.
So Joan, let me interject here.
Sure.
I pulled because I wanted to see the enabling legislation for CPC about a couple hours ago and looked at everything and all the amendments that took place. Nowhere in there is there a preference for a town project versus a private project. And I don't think it's, personally, I don't think it's correct that we're giving preference to a town project versus a private project. I think they all need to be looked at on the validity that they're at. whether they're good or they're bad. Now, I think we can say our preference is not to do anything, but I think giving specific preference to a town project, I don't think it's part of the CPC Act, and I don't think we should do that.
Well, I don't know, I
May-
disagree, but we.
Yeah, maybe there's a different way we can put it, you know, instead of saying only, we could say preference goes to, and I don't think that would be it would be a way where we wouldn't be excluding the project that we maybe can't think of right now, but still say, you know, these are the criteria by which we evaluate whether we're gonna do mid-year funding.
Yeah, if you took the word only out and put in something, preferably town projects, but the committee will consider anything that has merit.
I mean, I don't know, you know, have not, like, reread, as you have the legislative language of the Community Preservation Act and with its amendments, but if that is a problem, that is one way we can deal
It's
with
not a
it.
problem, because I got my direction from Stuart.
Okay.
So Stewart said it's town projects.
He said a lot of
preferred.
towns are now doing town projects only, or like a big land purchase, and it's something that would be big, you know, not small projects, because if it's a small project, there should be funding someplace else for it.
Yeah.
And the reason why these projects, sort of like the playground, we wouldn't have, if we waited, it really could have been detrimental to the project. But, you know, this is just a recommendation, it's all, yes, Bob?
I think that
Joan and I have already had a brief conversation about this. I'll just say this, it's not broken, don't fix it. I think this committee for years has done a great job. I think we're very capable of saying when the rec people came in, yeah, we'll take this out of order, and as Charlie mentions, if it's something that's really unique, we'll take it out of order. But I think we can, as we've historically done, make it clear that we want to see the applications in the fall, as we always have. And then going down through the rest of it, Joan, is that I just don't agree with most of what is in there. And quite frankly, being an old Cape Codder, grew up in Wellfleet, I'm not real impressed with what the rest of the towns in Massachusetts do, which vis-à-vis, I don't really much care what Stuart tells us about what the rest of the, what I care about is Orleans, and I think Orleans has done this very well. And I just don't want to, I don't want to start putting in a lot of gobbledygook. For instance, if we jump ahead, we're talking about, well, we want to see that they've got skin in the game. Well, I can think of a lot of cases where they won't have skin in the game. I just want to look at each application, and then we can say, no, you know, I don't think you should, we don't want to talk to you. As you recall with Chove, which I've been a great supporter, I told them this year, I really don't want to see you next year.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to dig in on this one. You know, if the majority wants to do it, fine, but I'll be a no vote.
I think the thing is, it's not that, the question was, so how do we handle what happens in the fall? And also, how do we use some of our money now to pay for larger projects that the town needs some funding for? And I personally think we funded a lot of stuff that came before us just because they came before us in the past. We didn't do a lot of, well, what else could this money be used for? What happens if the playground needs, you know, lighting now for $500,000? Should we not hold aside some money and know about that project so we could fund that? Because I do think there are going to be projects coming down the path that might be better if we held more money aside.
I don't disagree with holding money aside at all, but.
So, and that gets into the long-term planning, and if
No, it
we-
doesn't, because the long-term planning is a train wreck in most all towns, and I don't want to get into what's going on in our town right now, but I just, sure, we can we can agree, we want to set aside a certain amount of money in case something comes up, but I don't want to lock us into long-term planning.
Well, I don't know, Bob, if it's long-term as much as it is, they're gonna be working on the band shell soon. Is there a way for the CPC to help? Is long-term 2 years? Potentially. So for the band shell, if we could fund redoing the bathrooms, which under a park, under CPC, sometimes you can fund to get them done. And we knew this year that in 2 years they're gonna be ready, and it's gonna cost $1 million. that might have an impact on how we think about giving money aside next year. It's just a different way of looking at it to help support the town. I do think we support nonprofits. I'm in a different bucket than you. I think we funded a lot of these projects, and like we're a bank. And I do think there is money out there that I would like people to go out and get. At least show us that they tried to get money, Bob. Maybe they didn't get any, but at least show that they made an effort to go get some incremental money. That's,
It's just, I've been involved, I was one of the original ones that made the land bank happen.
right.
And I have a pretty deep understanding of how I think it all works. But my feeling is, that's why we're here, to help them put it together. Sending people off for grant applications, it's a real lengthy process. Most of these people don't have staff that could actually pay to go and make the application. The schoolhouse is a great example of that. Again, I'm fine with just setting, we want to set a certain amount of money aside if something comes up. My gut feeling is if we're talking about the bandstand or any major town project, the town can come and ask us to help it, but the Board of Selectmen, they control the warrant. They can put an article in if they think it's worthwhile. But I think what we've been doing has been great, and I don't see putting in a lot of legalese to guide us. We can look at each one, and you can make your argument that year when an application comes in and say, I think, no, I can't support it, I think you should have gotten a grant before you came to us. But I think it's worked well. I don't want to fix something.
Yeah, one thing I do want to throw in is that we did strengthen the guidance document to specifically ask applicants to show what other sources of funding outside of CPC or even outside of the town that they were pursuing in order to basically, so that the CPC didn't become just a sort of convenient free bank for people who just didn't want to do the research. However, I do side with Joan a little bit on this, Bob, to say that I do think that sending out a message that maybe strengthens that what we were asking them to do and put it into a little bit more of a, a little bit more of a formality does hold the feet to the fire of some of these small nonprofits or other organizations that are trying to get funding. And, at the same time, I do agree with one thing that you said, which is I don't want us to sort of become another arm of town funding where that town funding is clearly available through the selectmen or through town meeting warrant, or could be available through that. But at the same time, I wouldn't mind, whether it's the Northwest Schoolhouse or Cho or anybody else, or, the French Cable Museum, of having just a little bit more guidance as to what it is that they ought to be doing in order to get money from us, because it's a very competitive process.
So I got
Let's just go around. Stephanie?
I guess that when I look at historically, like Bob says, of what have we done, I kind of come down on the side of it can be a death by 1,000 cuts, and that is that we give 1,000 here, 1,000 there, 2,000 here, 5,000 there, and are these really projects that benefit the general populace of Orleans? And I do like our preference for funding to always be to the town as opposed to a 501(c)(3). And that's always a difficult decision to make, but that's where I'd like it to go. But that's my personal preference. And I express that in this committee when we do talk about things. But this last year, I was unhappy that we did not put more aside into a general fund. And mostly where that money was going to be going was going to be affordable housing. And it was to the Affordable Housing Trust, which is a 501(c), I believe. No,
No, that's the town.
that is the town. Okay, that was, okay. Then I stand corrected with that. But it's, a year ago also, we had Mark come speak to us about planning, future planning. Why did we not have the kind of funds available that Brewster and Harwich and other people did? And I guess I would like to see us be more of a resource for some town projects. So I would come probably more down on the side of what Joan is saying, which is making it mostly for, or the priority being for town-funded projects as opposed to private projects. But then on the other hand, to me, the Academy of Performing Arts is such an iconic thing, and they always have difficulty with funding, and so, you know, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. So I guess I'm still divided, but would, at this point, come down on the side of preference to town projects.
A couple things. First is, dealing with what Stephanie said, I think each project should be looked at for its own validity, whether it's town or it's private, and I don't think there should be my point of view is there shouldn't be a preference of one versus the other. It should be the validity of the project. Second conversation here is under funding for nonprofits. I think we should, and I believe as a committee we have encouraged people to have funding. The writing here mandates other funding, private funding, alternative funding, and I don't think that's correct. I think we should encourage it. We shouldn't mandate it. Third thing is it must show how it's aligned with the comprehensive plan. I am fine for it to say it can indicate what it is, but it shouldn't. The word "must" should be out of there, and it should. My point of view. The last thing is, on the next page, it says eliminate smaller projects. Actually, I think a lot of the CPC is for the smaller projects where they can't get money from any place else, and I think that, to me, that would be a serious problem if we said we're gonna eliminate smaller projects. Once again, it says that don't align with the comprehensive plan. I don't think a project has to align with a comprehensive plan. I think each project should be looked at individually. And it also says aligns with CPC's core mission. I'm not sure what that is. I know what the core mission, I know what it says in the enabling legislation for each of the buckets. I have no idea what that means. That's my point.
Michael or Francesca, who wants to go? Francesca?
Sure, thank you. I definitely support this effort. I see it more as an effort towards having more strategy regarding the use of our funds, and I definitely support that. In terms of the element of like eligible project types with out-of-cycle funding, just a comment on that, because I think Bob's point and others were well taken. I think that like there's a balance between having like a communicated standard and also like keeping ourselves available to the projects that come up. When I hear like town funded projects, when I was reading town projects, I guess I wasn't quite interpreting it as like literally town sponsored projects, but more projects that are in alignment with comprehensive plan or particular town goals, which I guess would tend to be town projects. I guess I would say, like, I do think it would be important for us to have a communicated standard for out-of-cycle funding, mostly so that it's just clear to the applicant what they can expect from us. And also, I think to remove a level of, like, personal opinion that I think we can have as part of our conversations in the CPC. And so I think, I don't necessarily agree with what's written here on this document, but I do think that it would be helpful to have more clearly communicated standards for what qualifies for out-of-cycle funding if we are willing to hear that. I think on the kind of topic of the long-term planning kind of conversation that I'm seeing throughout this document. I think from a planning board perspective, I do think that it's really important to think strategically about the CPC funds. I think that in general, applicants should align with the comprehensive plan, or, you know, town expressed needs, but I don't think that they need to come, I don't find a priority between like town sponsored, applicants versus not. I think it's just, again, in general, like as a committee, thinking strategically in that way. I think what I see here in this document, again, like I like the general sentiment of strategy, but I feel like it could be expressed in a different way. And maybe that looks to me like, rather than these things that are kind of like very like prescriptive and like specific, having you know, some things that communicate more clearly to the applicant what they can expect, like for out of cycle funding. But then in general, no matter who the applicant is, for the board or for the committee ourselves, having perhaps a more standard way of evaluating an application that, again, removes some level of like personal opinion and allows us to attach more kind of like quantitative metrics to how the applicant aligns with our goals as a committee and like with the town's goals as a whole. And I definitely am sensitive to Bob's point about not comparing us to other towns. But I was doing some research for work and happened to be looking at Bourne's CPC like application process, and they have what I see is like a pretty lengthy, basically it seems almost like a rubric or survey that each committee member fills out when they're reading an application. To me, that seemed like a lot, but I really valued the way that they're assigning, you know, they have particular values that they're looking for in an applicant, and then it's, you know, at what level or what scale is this application meeting this value, like 0 to 5. And then we have numbers that we're able to then kind of prioritize or base a conversation around. And I would definitely support an effort that gets us, I think, closer to, in some ways, like a more objective or strategic conversation around some of the applications, but still gives us the space and room for, you know, that personal connection and opinion that I think is also can what make our applications really successful.
Great. Good. Michael?
Okay. Yeah, I'm more in the camp of the projects being kind of unbiased and not giving preference to anyone. I know that might seem odd coming from the town, but I think for the CPC, as Charles mentioned, you know, this is a avenue for organizations to be able to get money that don't have the ability to get it in other places. The town has many different ways to raise money for projects. So I like always the, you know, going in, and I think even Francesca was mentioning, kind of going in with kind of an unbiased, no preference. And we discuss each application on its merits. I do like having something in place, whether it's a guideline, a policy, a recommendation, just to having a framework, if you would, so it does clear out some of the ambiguity. In regards to the out of cycle, I just think I like the point, I think the best point in there for me is applicants must demonstrate the request is a genuine emergency and cannot wait for the normal cycle. I don't think people should be using this as a way to go into, because if you're talking about large town projects, those are gonna have to be financed, because it's not like we have so much money out of cycle. So you're gonna talk about any cycle, any project would come in at that time. And, you know, a lot of us looking at projects can justify an emergency in a lot of different ways of what is an actual emergency. I kind of think that we have to hold a higher bar to things that come out of cycle. In regards to the others, I would probably agree with Charles on most of it.
Yeah, and so this was just, this was the framework based on the questions I was asked last time.
And if I can just add one last thing.
Yes.
The combination of the strategic and trying to place funds aside and doing all that things, that gets very complicated and get us down a rabbit hole of extending credit and extending, projects that need financing instead of needing actually our dollars. And I don't want to see us get into a situation, we can borrow as much as we want. People around this dais can say, we're gonna borrow this, we're gonna borrow that, we're gonna give 4 million here, 10 million there, 7 million here. All we have to do is carry the debt, and we have nothing much to do on that. Long as the debt doesn't go over the available $1 million, we could feasibly do that. I don't want to see that happen. I think we should keep our financing kind of tight and responsible, our long-term debt, and really kind of be a resource that people can come in and ask for a project. It's done in 12 months, maybe 18 months, and then we move on to the next project. And it's kind of we're not looking for putting debt out there for 15, 20 years. That's my.
Joan, can I follow up with just one more thing? Yeah, so just as other people were talking, I was reminded about a couple of things. And the first is that the projects that often, some of the projects that and I think I might have even said this at a previous meeting, or certainly hinted at it when we were writing that guidance document, some of the projects are what I call the projects that can fall between the cracks because they don't fit neatly into other categories of fiscal allocation at town meeting or other committees or things of that nature. And I think that's important. Now, one of the things I also wanted to say that I do like about this document is I do want to keep pushing for better and better research, documentation, how much an applicant thinks about how that project could fit into the categories. And these are many of the things in the guidance document. So to say that we are here to be that, at least a catchment for some of the projects that fall between the cracks, doesn't mean that we're also here to be a catchment for people who just aren't really doing the work or capable of it or so on. Secondly, doing that work and having that guidance document, or guidance, whether it's this document, that one, or just our general policy, is very important to making these smaller organizations or smaller projects more credible and better research. In fact, it arguably could end up bringing in more money to the town from other non-town sources because we've got an applicant to understand the world of grant giving and where other monies might be available at the state or even the federal level or nonprofit level. So those are very good things, and that's why I would continue to push, in this, the idea that applicants can do better, even small ones that have relatively little funding or staff capability and so on. Having said that, it might be a good idea for us to take this document, and I will take some responsibility for this one, go back to the guidance document that we wrote and see if maybe I can merge some of those ideas together. Maybe we do something that is a separate document, but I haven't looked at that document myself in a year or two, and it might be a good idea to go back and look at that and see if that sheds some light on what you put together in this.
Well, I think my other thought was, I was a little bit off-put by the request for $5 million in October. We were asked at the really last minute.
Yep.
It should have been a discussion beforehand. It could have been August, and we were told it wasn't going to go on. At the select board meeting, it said it wasn't going to go on the warrant unless we funded. So it made us be somewhat the bad guy if we didn't fund it. And I don't want to be put in that spot.
Correct.
And so, to me, the most important thing of this is there's a deadline, whether it's just town or it's other projects, but there's a deadline of September, or there's a deadline of August, so we're not the bad guy again, because that wasn't a fun exercise to go through.
I don't disagree with that.
Right, so to me, that's the most important thing of this document, whoever comes in, and I did appreciate you, Bob, when the Northwest Schoolhouse got a little, well, you have to give me this 10 grand, and I was on the phone, and you were like, we're not talking about that 10 grand now. No one should expect that we're gonna give them money every year for every project that they ask for.
I agree with that.
And so to that, and the other cases, the funding for nonprofits, although it's all volunteers, we shouldn't be their only source of revenue, because if we are, what happens if we don't fund them? The fact we had to spend $2,000 for shades for the
French cable.
French Cable is scary. You know, if they don't have $2,000 in reserve, how are they gonna survive? And we've already put a lot of money in there. So I think it's that due diligence, and I think, you know, Academy has gotten money. They have fundraisers, they have events, and if that's, and it's what someone said here, how can Northwest have an event? I think that's what we have to show, is that there is another source of money, because
I don't disagree with that, John, but I don't want to condition on it. I want to be in a position to point out to them, you should also be looking at other grants. Or simply saying, we gave you money last year, we gave you money the year before, hopefully you can find it somewhere else, but we're going to take a recess this year. But what I love about this committee is, A, we've had great autonomy, and we get to look at each and every application, and that application has to get a majority vote from all of us. And they usually do. It's worked well, and ultimately, all we're doing is passing it on to the town meeting to see if they want to vote it up or down. I don't want to make it so complicated that we have some people just feel we can't make the application. And my great fear, and this goes really back to what the historic folks were saying, is take the French Museum, for example. That is a real skeleton crew type operation, and I like to fund them because I think they could go belly up without our funding, and then the property goes on the market, and it's in probably a limited business zone of some sort, and we get some business in a historic building. The Academy, they had some real rough sailing where they took on way too many mortgages, bought buildings they, in hindsight, they probably shouldn't have bought, and we bailed them out. And now, because they've got a great director, it's an institution, and guess what? You can thank us for that. And so I just like seeing the application and making a decision and saying, you know, have you, to that applicant, where else have you applied? But I don't want to make too many conditions, because to me, we're really the last resort for some of the private organizations that the town needs.
Francesca has her hand up as well.
Francesca and Stephanie.
No, let Francesca
go ahead.
first.
Oh, sorry, thank you. I would agree with Bob's comment about, you know, not having conditions that would then limit applications. I think that if we were to more like clearly communicate or even publicize the way that we're evaluating, like if, again, I'm putting it out here, this is not, no attachment to this, but like that type of like a rating option, then applicants would more clearly say, like, there's a better chance of this being funded if I do have other funding sources coming into it. And I think we might be able to get stronger applications or support even some of the nonprofits in the community by asking them for, you know, maybe a higher level of an application. So I think there's something to be balanced there. The other thing that I just want to make a comment on is my earlier comments about like the comprehensive plan or strategy. And I was not thinking of that in the way of like long-term bonding. I was more thinking of what Joan's point was, which was like being more aware, like as a committee strategically, of some of the longer-term planning things that are happening. And this might be my own, you know, kind of ignorance of the things that are happening in town. But in the future, you know, not being surprised by that kind of request, like Joan mentioned. And so that's the way I was more thinking about strategy, and something I learned from this past year. So I wanted to kind of clarify that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about, like what is coming down that we should know about? Not that we're gonna bond now, but.
Look at the CIP.
Yeah.
I mean, that'll tell you what's coming down the pike of any significant projects.
Yeah, but that's town.
Right, that's what I,
The playground wasn't in there.
no, it wasn't. So that's why it came to
Right,
us.
but that's why it would be good to meet with the town, find out, is there property coming up?
But we gotta be careful with that, because we can't pre-commit to things.
Oh, it's not pre-commit, but let's say we knew the conservation,
But then when you hold money aside for that, that seems.
no, but
like
it's,
you're-
I don't know. I think it's just good to know what's coming down the pike, so we're not,
Well, in the warrant book, look at the CIP, and I think we should all maybe review it, and discuss those things, and see where they're going, what things in there may come across. Our sewers are not gonna probably come across our plate, right? So there's things that we can easily take off. I'm sure, we've been talking about doing 44 Main Street. I'm sure that's something that could come here. We've been talking about,
44 Main being what?
being
The old
Oh,
firehouse.
fires that we turned down?
No, in a whole different light
Right.
of doing housing.
Right.
Housing.
Doing housing, a community floor on the first floor and space and different things like that. We're also there's also Depot Square as a town. We're gonna be looking at renovating there, and I'm sure they're gonna come at some point.
Right, so
Yeah.
those are the
Oh.
projects
Under
that would
what-
be good, I think, to have a little more than just read the plan, but have a conversation about them, so we could say, next year we have all this stuff coming, hey, but the following year, these other big projects might be coming down our path.
You know, but
I
those
don't
big
know.
projects are gonna suck every dollar out. Those aren't gonna be projects that are like, we need 500,000, we need $1 million. It's gonna be, we need $5 million, or at least. So that's gonna just.
But only a
boom, it's-
few of the projects qualify under CPC.
They could make it a park. There's ways to make these.
There's a ways
There's
to
ways
make
to make the
things.
band shell and the bathroom and that whole thing. That's gonna suck another 2 million if you want right out. Our budget is only 1.4.
I
So that's the whole year, that, everything else goes to the wayside. So all I'm saying is we should be strategic to know what's coming down the pike, but I think we gotta be careful. I'd hate to stop doing all of these individual projects and only go for big projects.
I understand that. I'm just at this different place with a lot of these nonprofits, and I support them all, but I think for themselves, Bob, they can't be, I love the Cable Museum, but they really need to figure out, I think, who else is giving to them, what are their donors doing? What can they do to help raise money also, because we don't want it to go under, but there will become a time where we might just be, we can't fund them anymore for anything that they're doing.
Well, I
And
don't-
they're really dedicated people, but what happens if they leave? I mean, there's not a,
Well, first of all,
Succession plan.
right,
I don't expect, I can't think of a lot more that they would be asking us for. They seem to have come out of curtains, but, again, my feeling, Joan, is that we make that decision when they make an application. And we can ask them hard questions, like, are you guys really gonna be able to survive? I wanna do anything I can do to help them survive, because I really do feel that Orleans is changing a lot, and a lot of our core, which is our old buildings, are being demolished, and that troubles me a lot. But again, we have the power to, with any applicant, to say, if we've funded you in the past, but, you really, turns out your donors really, you don't have many donors, and we can ask hard questions, but I just like the way we've done things, and going, in terms of the long-term town issues, I've always felt that the onus is on the Board of Selectmen to line up funding for big projects.
Yeah, I agree.
Where we've gotten blindsided in a good way over the years is land. You never know when somebody's gonna come along and say, well, I'm thinking about putting my property on the market for $1 million, but I'd love the town to have it for 500. Those are the ones where it's nice to have some money in reserve, but you can't
That's a
plan
timing
on
thing,
those.
because if they're selling, you may not be able to wait for the next cycle.
Right, and we can't plan on them.
Yeah.
But that's
Yep.
also,
You never know when a landowner is gonna say, it's time to sell. I understand where you're coming from, Joan, I really do, but I hate to lock ourselves into things.
I'm fine not doing anything, but I think,
So am
I
I.
do think we need something, though, that says, what are we willing to do for fall?
Well,
Well,
and in my email to you, I said you get an A+ on that one.
yes, that's-
And with the exception of Charles's point about town, or anybody that can show a real emergency, I'm with you on that. It was all the rest of it that kind of, and you know, you never, just listen out to this old timer that served on a lot of boards. You never drop something on somebody 2 hours before a meeting or
Right.
3 hours before a meeting.
Can I suggest that we take John up on his offer to try to synthesize what's here, and then get a revised document? that we-
I would like to do that.
Whatever it is, I'm sure there'll be more discussion, but that gets it to the next stage.
I can live with a lot more of it if you go to Charles's point, not, remove must.
Yes, I understand.
And then it doesn't bother me so much.
Yeah.
But I appreciate your effort, Joan.
Why, thank you.
That took a lot of work to do that.
Well, it took not as much because I took my notes and this morning stuck it in AI, so that's why it looks like this. Because I've been a little busy, as you all know.
That explains the must.
I'm still,
That's why the must came in there. So like I said, this was just the draft, but I did enjoy talking to Stuart about how other towns are starting to look at things, because I do think that is important.
I'm still impressed
Yeah.
with your document, even though I shot it
That's fine.
probably out of
Thank
the
you.
water a little bit, but anyway.
Michael and then Stephanie, hold on, good.
Yeah, I think, John, when you look at it, I agree with Francesca's point about, you know, I don't think we should go to a full rubric, but, you know, it might be nice to have, my idea was, you know, I really want these applications to come in well thought through, well planned, and ready to execute when the money comes. As in my limited experience, the CPC's always gotten through town meeting. It's an easier lift to get a CPC item through than it is a standalone warrant article. I'm just telling you. But I do think it's the responsibility for large-scale projects of the select board. So I do agree with you. We got to step up as a board and support those projects. So, you know, I just went through a process of another organization I work for, and giving out a lot of grants. And it was really heartbreaking, you know, they're very strict. These grant applications didn't come out filled out all, and not every document came with it. And there were very deserving people and organizations that had to be excluded. And it wasn't kind of, let's call them up and see if they can send in their stuff. And I'm like, you don't ask if they missing something and let them know? And they're kind of really strict in that organization when they say, it was very clear in the guidelines. We're dealing with organizations and adults, and if they don't submit the proper paperwork,
They can't complete their
the-
project
the-
adequately.
Yeah, I mean, well, they don't even look at the application. So I'm not saying we need to be that strict. I would just I think it's gonna be easier on this committee to have well-thought-out projects presented to us. And we have that confidence that, again, they're going to be, you know, start when we fund, maybe they're 12 to 18 months. If not, then wait till the next year, because I hate seeing money sit around while there's really important projects that need it, but we're encumbering it for 3 years when somebody could have used money within those 3 years, and they could have come to us when they were ready. You know, so I don't like the idea of encumbering personally, but
That's fine. Stephanie?
Yeah, I have a real lack of imagination when I try to think of, all right, what is the future and who's going to be coming to us? Because when I look at who has come to us, that's what I base my things on. And we have the French Cable Museum, the Northwest Schoolhouse, and the Academy of Performing Arts, and Cho. Those are our major recipients. And when I think who's going to be coming in the future, I don't get beyond that. I mean, maybe some of you have a better imagination of who else might be coming.
We had the
but
Episcopal Church. They wanted
that
us
was,
to
they
be-
did the gallery, yes, and someone else did an organ, but those were one-offs.
One-off.
They're not, you know, they're not continuous. Those are our continuous asks. And when I think through on them, as much as each one of them is valid and has been, that what we've given them has been valuable, I go to where Joan is, which is, how much more do we give? We've given Northwest Schoolhouse close to $700,000 now. How much more do we give them? How much more do we give French cable. I thought we were done when we did the shades, but then this year it's the spool out back for the cable, and I forget what the other thing is that they're going after. So, you know, where does it stop? And then the other thing that comes to my mind is we had, when Mark came with, no, maybe it wasn't when Mark came, it was someone else talked about the town of Brewster and their CPC, and they were shocked because they had 4 applicants for their CPC projects that year. And we were all stunned, like, why do they have so few? So what is it that someone like the town of Brewster is doing that they don't get tons of applicants? Are they more restrictive, as Francesca talked about with the town of Bourne, the way they do it, so that you weed out a lot before it even gets to you? And maybe that's where we need to be too, so.
Well, I think it's all good discussion. I just want to put two other things out there. The eliminate smaller projects, part of that came up, someone asked, why are we funding 10K to the CDP every year? Shouldn't that be funded from the housing groups? Because we fund it every year, we just do a check mark. And I think there are some of those we should look at and say, should that be coming from us, or should that be coming from the housing authority? Because we're giving the housing
Housing
authority
trust,
money.
housing trust.
Housing trust.
Yes.
We're giving them money, they should decide if it's worthwhile. So those are those sort of small projects that I do think, instead of just checking the box, we need to have some discussions about. The other couple of things on here that came up, which I think is important, although other towns are doing it, it's highly recommended that we put the term of anything we're bonding for in our warrant article. There was a town last year who was told they were gonna get it bonded for 30 years. Their accountant ended up bonding it for 10. They have almost no money to spend in their CPC budget. And that happened because they couldn't get a 30-year bond. So as Stuart was saying, it's really important to put the terms in the warrant article if you're gonna bond, if it's gonna be a 20 or 30 year. And also, we should just have a statement underneath, whatever we put, that this is a 2-year grant. Not on everyone, but it should be a set timeline. They can always come back and ask for an extension, but it's, at least that's what people are voting on. Because right now, if they're not voting on the time of the bond or the time of what we're giving them to spend, it's not the full story. And those are just little additions that,
I think those are 2 excellent points, Jim.
you know, that should go in there. And then their other recommendation, and we might not need to do this, but we extend the funding, we need a new agreement. And right now, we have not a new agreement that someone can go look up. It's an old agreement, or this has been amended. And to your point, Charles, this thing we're gonna do for Cho needs to be updated. So, and I think that is a good policy, so someone could just look up, well, when is the last agreement? How much do they have to spend? And how much time? I mean, Judy just came in, do we give her a year? Do we give her 2 years? She's gonna plant in the fall.
A year.
Right. So, those would be the only other 2 things on here we didn't talk about. Okay,
I would just check with finance on the term limit, the terms of the bond.
he's, Mark is gonna talk to them
Good,
about
okay.
whether or not we could put that in writing, or,
I just don't want us to exclude that we put 30, they got a better favorable rate of 20, it was better to do it that way.
Right,
We
there's
didn't
some-
know that, and then we,
could be something that we have in writing before, but that supposedly they could put anything and not come back to us.
they're gonna do the best, I believe the town is gonna do
Right,
the best.
and we trust this town, but this just happened in another town, so that sort of became a hot issue for people in the CPC. All right, so we're gonna have John, we have to vote. We don't need a sub-team because it's John, so that's good. So John will just go ahead and try to write this up. We need to vote to approve the historic consultant legal
Wait,
services.
John, if you want input, and you want to send it to me, I'd be
If
happy
you
to.
need help, reach out.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, I will, yeah.
Okay.
Great. All right, so we need to vote to approve the historic consultant legal services and the coalition annual membership fee.
So moved.
Second,
Oh,
We have to go all in favor, we have to say our names.
roll call.
yeah,
I'm Michael Herman.
Aye, Charles Hillis.
Francesca?
Hi, Francesca Galazzi.
Hi, Joan Franklini.
Hi, Stephanie Gaskell.
Am I in this or not?
the amount is $5,000 for each. Is that agreeable to everyone?
Sure.
Okay.
Hi, John Lippman.
Hi, Bob Wilkinson.
Okay, great. Now we have to vote to approve the minutes of April 2nd.
So moved.
Seconded.
Michael Herman?
Hi, Charles Ellis.
Francesca?
I, Francesca Galazzi.
Aye, Joan Franklini.
Hi, Stephanie Gaskell.
Hi, John Lippman. I can't
You weren't
remember
here,
if I was
John.
there. That's when I was not
Did
here.
you,
Doesn't matter.
did you read the minutes?
No.
No.
Yeah, she did.
You don't have to be at the meeting, but
Right.
you have to at least read.
That was my failed phone call from North Carolina, I think.
Right?
Hi, Bob
Yeah,
Wilkinson.
but he did read them because we corresponded on
You just
email
said
about
no.
it.
It's okay.
I can't
Okay to
remember.
have one.
Okay,
Sorry. None of my
so
readers.
before we adjourn, I am not going to be here in June. so
What
don't-
country are you going to be in?
France.
We're in
Paris.
France.
Where? Oh,
In
Paris.
Paris for 10 days.
Nice.
A little vacation.
Good. You deserve
We
it.
deserve a bigger
Well
vacation.
deserved.
You deserve to spend a year there.
Exactly, it might be next.
Okay, great.
And no one else on this board except for me's term is up. Hardy's term might be up because he's on the open space and he only had a 1-year cycle. I did submit, because my entire term is up for 6 years, I did ask if I can get an extension, and they said they will see. Otherwise, I will not be here. So that's the way that
If you need
works.
a letter of support, let me know.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So, I think that's it, so now we can vote to adjourn.
So are we not going to have a June meeting?
Well, I think you can have a June meeting,
Do we need one?
but I
Do we-
think that
yeah.
is what's on it.
Doesn't feel like we need one.
We don't need one.
I would strongly.
We haven't talked to French Cable in Cumberland. That's the only thing. I haven't been able to get even on phone.
Is this about the sunshades, Jennifer?
Yes.
If it's okay, I can tell you now an update.
Oh,
Let's do that.
Or I can message you after
No,
the
I
meeting.
just-
I can send you an email.
we just need, the June meeting is when I find out what we're encumbering.
Okay. Mary responded to me today and said that they can definitely get it done by June 30th.
Great. Okay, that was the only outstanding.
So the other thing is, that's the only one, so we don't have to meet like the last day of June again?
No, we have to do our forms.
But you have all the
I
info?
I have all the feedback,
Okay, great.
yeah,
We didn't have that last time.
as long as everybody's
Okay, so we
okay.
won't have a June meeting. We will have a July meeting. John,
What,
that gives you
what is
last
the
time.
Yep.
date in July? Because of, we have to watch the fourth.
Okay.
I think, I don't,
Yeah, I'd vote we move that one to the second week of July.
hold on a second.
If the room's available.
Right.
Oh, yeah, it's Thursday, July 2nd. That would be our meeting. Is that a problem for most people?
It's not for me,
It's
but
not for
No,
me.
not for,
I'm okay with it, I think. I'm not going anywhere.
Okay,
okay. July.
Okay, let's do that.
Next meeting is July,
July.
okay.
All right, so I hope everyone's going to town meeting and voting for our
Oh,
CPC project. And I am not going to speak. I think the select board is just going to do it this way. I don't have to get up and speak. That's another reason.
Yeah, we're just gonna introduce, we'll just introduce the article
Right,
and then
exactly.
take
Just
it from
motion
there.
passed, there's no, right, exactly, great. Okay, motion to adjourn,
I motion to adjourn?
Seconded.
okay.
I'm
yeah.
Michael Herman.
Hi, Charles Ellis.
Francesca?
Yes, Francesca Galazzi.
Aye, Joan Franklini.
Hi, Stephanie Gaskell.
Hi, John Lippman.
Bob Wilkinson.
Okay,